Hey fellas, I am sitting here working on the Weimars, trying to get a Husqvarna 254 XP cylinder and carb and everything to fit on here. And let me show you what I got going on. All right, so this is the Weimars setup. All right, we go right there. What we notice is the high-low adjustment screws sit right above that little ridge right there in the case. All right, we can get into them and adjust them right there like that. They probably would sit up just a hair, I don't know. But anyways, that's where we're going. That's it. We got our throttle linkage right here that hooks up right like that into that hole right there. This one, right? So that's our stock setup. Remove this. Now what I have, this is a 254 XP Chinese cylinder. I've warbled out the holes like this to get it to fit. That is a proper 254 XP intake manifold. And the carburetor is a Chinese 372 XP carb. I want to show you how this thing fits. If you notice, I already removed the high jet because the high jet was very clearly hitting that ledge right there. So I removed it to get it down here as good as I can. Hold on. All right, I had to move my throttle lever out of the way. So that throttle lever is right lined up with this throttle control arm on this side. So I should be able to drill a hole in here. I might be able to use that hole, but I doubt it. It's awful close. But drill a second hole right here, and that throttle lever or rod will go right in that hole. But over here, I just don't have enough room. There's not enough room between these two to put an air filter adapter. Also, I have to cut out that portion right there of the case, which I'll still have to do, I'm pretty sure. But what I'm thinking is I would be better served if I made a new manifold block. All I'll do is measure, and this amount right here, right, I will remove. I might use this manifold block, actually, now that I think about it. Just cut it right there on that line. Or I'll make a new manifold. We'll see. But that way, we'll take our whole carburetor and we'll move it further forward like this. And it'll give me room back here to install a proper air filter adapter of some sort. So we're going to get to work on that, and I'll show you what I come up with. 5/8 of an inch. Oh. That's pretty darn close. It's a little bit fat, which gives us a little bit of room to work with if we need to. This is machinable plastic. Just type in machinable plastic on Amazon and you'll be able to find something like that. About as perfect as you can ask for. Okay, I've got it all clamped up here, as you can see. And I left the sleeves in place. You can see them right there. Because that'll allow us to get a nice perfect center on this. The drill bit of choice is a 5/32. And, oh, I need to find my drill. Okay, so here we go. out of there. All right, I can't get all, oh yeah, I poked through just a little bit there. But now we gotta unclamp, finish drilling through. There we go. Clean that up with our pocket knife. If you don't carry a pocket knife, are you actually a man? I don't. That is crude. All right, now that we have it bolted here, no need for the clamp. Go ahead, just go right at this other side. There we go. Let's get this out of here now. Oh, watch it! Oh. There we go. Now the bolt should slide through there without problem. Yeah, baby. There we go. Now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to take this, bolt it in place. Let's see, it should match up perfectly, and it does. That's going to be no problem whatsoever. That matches up perfect. Now we're going to drill a hole right there best we can, center it up, and then slowly with our rotary tool actually port out the hole the size that we want. If I have a gasket, I'll put a gasket on here so that it gives me some semblance of where I'm going, and yeah, we'll go from there. Bada bing, bada boom. We have ourselves an intake block. So what I did, in case you weren't 100% with it, the intake side of our 254 XP cylinder looks like that. Our carburetor looks like that. So on one side, I had this, which came off of the clone saw, the Weimars. This was part of the Weimars intake setup, and I bolted that here. And on the other side, I took the square portion and bolted it like that, so that whenever I was using my rotary tool, I had a guide of where to go. And so what we have, it ain't perfect, but it's really close. Right? And it feeds into the intake. Now, the rest of the porting that I will do will be done via on the actual cylinder itself, because I'll want to port this up as hooked up together so that I can get a perfect smooth flow. So it looks like I'm going to have to cut a little bit a little notch right there because it's hitting that fin. Cut a little notch like that. Other than that, this should work perfect. Now, you're going to be wondering about that impulse hole, right? Well, I will JB weld that up because the 372 XP carburetor gets its impulse via a hose right here. And the Weimar's impulse is from the case. It's already built in. I'll have to cut a little notch on the cylinder here for that impulse on the case. However, this is a simple dimple, no problem, and I will be able to use that as my intake block. It is considerably shorter than this. How do I do this? There we go. That right there should give us what we need space-wise. I'll still have to cut on the case a little bit for my high needle, and we'll go from there. If it's a little bit too fat still, all I got to do is take a little bit more off of this. It's no big deal. Table saw cut this stuff like magic. No issue whatsoever. Nice, clean face cuts, you know. And I actually dare to say that with this right here, I wouldn't even need to run gaskets because that is such a nice flush finish. You understand that's what is up with gaskets, right? You don't need gaskets. Gaskets are not a necessity unless you have imperfections. If you had two perfect surfaces perfectly matched up together, you wouldn't need a gasket. But another reason for the gasket is vibrations. Vibrations would make two hard surfaces kind of work apart. That gasket acts as a buffer, right? But anyways, very happy with how that turned out, and I'm looking forward to how this saw is going to turn out. The only thing that's going on with the impulse line is it strictly has to do with this cylinder that we just block it off. There's no need for it. So there was no need for me to make my block with the impulse line in it because I am not going to be feeding my impulse through the cylinder the way that the 254 does. And if this works out, it should be no big deal to also switch from a 254 cylinder to a 262 XP cylinder. Now, I don't want to do that for my purposes because what I'm trying to do is see if I can make a 55cc or less saw run really well for Sawfest. Am I going to use it at Sawfest? No, I'm going to use the Red Max. I'm pretty certain that this is not going to be able to compete with the Red Max. However, it's just for fun. We're seeing what we can do. And like I said, if this works, then it should also work for the 262 XP. And yeah, fun times. And this is, I've been wanting to do this. The reason I bought that material was to make stuff like this out of it. You know, you get a lot of, I understand we're all different people, and this isn't a shot at anybody, and I hope nobody takes it that way. But I hear things like, I don't know, let's just say the 262 XP. Well, the bad thing about the 262 XP is it's hard to find one of these, one of the intake manifolds for them. Make one. I don't know. I had a job. Some of you longtime viewers have heard me talk about it before, where I was an industrial technician. I worked at a big industrial plant, and we did crazy shit. And that job taught me how to truly modify stuff. Until that job, I was just like the masses, and I thought the only way that you could modify something was if you could buy a custom-made part for it. It never even popped into my head. It never even dawned on me that, well, I can make the custom part, you know? Like a camshaft is a big one. Like I don't know, let's say a Chevy 250 inline straight six. Maybe you can't find the camshaft the way that you want it. All they're doing whenever they make a custom grind camshaft is putting weld on each lobe of the camshaft and then grinding it the way that they want it and then heat treating it. And now I say all they're doing as if it's easy to do. It's not easy to do. However, it can be done because others do it. This is really a big deal in the motorcycle community because there's only certain motorcycles that the aftermarket will make performance parts for. And there's a lot of stuff out there that you maybe want to hop up. You know, a great example of that is the Honda ATC 110, the little teeny tiny three-wheelers. Back in the day, they used to race those. Adults would race those. Grown men would race a 110cc three-wheeler, and they were fast, right? And so there's a lot of parts still available for the 110. But you go the next step up to the 125. It had an electric starter, and those right there, people are like, the 110 is better. Why is the 110 better? Because you can buy aftermarket parts for it. You can buy aftermarket intake and camshaft and all kinds of stuff. You can't do that with the 125. Make them. So anyways, that's just a little bit about, really, that's my mindset. I see little to no hurdle. So if I like something, right? If I like something and I want to modify it, I modify it. Who gives a shit if they actually have parts available for it and everything, you know? I mean, it makes it easier for sure, but it's not like it isn't doable. This right here, proven, case in point, you know? So anyways, hope you liked it, guys. Look at this. I did such a good job making the intake and everything. Look at that. It's absolutely brilliant. It is stunning. It fits in there so great. The choke works and everything. I got this. This is for a 372 XP, the carburetor for 372 XP. Custom made the intake block. I was so excited, you know? This just worked so well. You know? Just look at that. It's so good. I did such a great job. I had to cut out a ton of the case material right there. Look at that. Even some of the handle material for the fuel tank. All kinds of stuff. You know, just stuff. I did cool stuff. But, alas, it is all for naught. Why, you ask that? You say, why? Because the piston is clearly made for a cylinder, or I'm sorry, for a crankshaft with a longer rod. So this isn't nearly high enough into the cylinder. It's so low that, well, my numbers, I put it together. Finally, once I got the intake and everything set up, I put it together, and my numbers are: intake opens at 60.5 degrees. Okay, that's no big deal. I can cut some off of the skirt. As a matter of fact, the skirt was hitting the crank, right? As whenever it rolled all the way through, it would hit the crank. And so, no problem. I can cut some off of the skirt. That's no big deal. I can get my intake numbers where they need to be. But the exhaust is at 85.5 and the transfers open at 60.5. No, I'm sorry, the transfers open at 106.5. So what that means is this piston's not going high enough, right? It's not going high enough because I have a short rod on this Weimars. Am I going to swap out the rod? No. Am I going to do anything else with this Weimars ever? Probably not. Because to put it all back to stock, I cut so much out of this. I mean, this was all the way up to there. I cut all that out. And so, alas, this is not going to work. Unless I was to make a custom piston, weld material onto the top of this piston to make it taller, which at that point, then you got to start questioning, should that happen? Probably not, because then it's going to be top heavy and it'll want to rock too much in the bore. Especially because I'll have to cut stuff off of the skirts. And so whenever that explosion happens up top, there'll be too much piston on top and it'll want to rock really, really bad. So I was so excited about this build too. And I like the Weimar so much. But at this point, I've ruined it. I mean, yeah, you could probably still do something with it. But am I going to? Probably not. I've tried every other 45mm piston. I have piston from a Husqvarna 55, piston from the piston from an 028 Super is 46mm, so it doesn't fit. And the Husky, it wasn't a Husky 55, it was a Husky 51. But even if the piston on this 028 is too big, it just gave me the idea of where the wrist pin is, and it's in the same location as the 254 piston. So it just ain't gonna work. It just ain't gonna work. Part of this game is knowing when to quit, and this is it. This is when I quit. It's not going to work. So it's such a shame, you know? Such a shame. I was really looking forward to making this happen, but it ain't going to. That rod needs to be longer. And so now the Weimars is no more. I could look into putting, I think, Kevin McKetty, Chainsaw Canuck. I believe he put a 036 cylinder and piston on this. And I may toy around with that a little bit, but that puts it with too many cc's. And it's pointless, because the whole point of this was to try and stay beneath 55 cc's. So yeah, it's useless. Moving on to the next thing. Sucks, all that work for nothing.